Hello and welcome to the Tower of God video. Today we're going to be talking about Xia Xia, a dog Xia Xia, actually, not even the regular one, and Adventures Are Hard, the new XSR Plus unit from the Data Tower. And if you want to see my first impression of Xia Xia, I made a video on that, but today will be a review and a should you summon video on the two. And if I always do my initial, my opinions on them first, and then I go with the rundown later. So if you want to know if you should summon for Xia Xia, she's so goddamn good. I think she's one of the best supports in the game. I think she's underrated. In all honesty, I mean, obviously everybody knows that she's super strong, and she is super strong. But I don't think people really know how strong she is. I think she is one of the better gonna be one of the better aging units, and she's really really good. So if you want to summon on her, and you're uncertain, and you need a support unit, this is a really good one to summon on. I'm not going to lie to you. I think she's probably my favorite release, apart from like Hugo, obviously, recently. So yes. Now about the problem child himself. Adventures Are Hard. I don't know about that guy. I don't know about that guy, if I'm being honest with you. He's okay. I don't think he's basically just a reskin or reimagined version of Data Zahard. And I wouldn't say this meta, but like they're trying to make Zahard do different things while keeping the same kit. So if you have Zahard Rainbow already, don't even summon on this guy, bro. He's not worth it. I mean, the good thing is, I will say that you can essentially exchange normal summon tickets for him. And realistically, if we're being honest with each other, it is a lot easier to get those than black market tickets. So if you have a bunch of them stacked up and you want to rainbow data as a hard, I think that would be a good opportunity to rainbow an SSR plus unit without using black market tickets. But as a unit itself, like he's like a C, like like he's barely an SSR plus unit because we already have a unit with the same kit, right? So he's okay. I mean, there's a few differences with him. Obviously, the revolution and other stuff too, but realistically, I don't know. Either way, enough stalling. Let's talk about the units themselves. Um, we'll talk about Xia Xia first because she is the main headliner unit. And I already did a kit reveal, but to quickly summarize everything about Xia Xia, she had three lighthouses and they revolve around her. After they revolve around her, once her HP drops under 70%, she'll be able to heal up her HP. It's basically an invincibility effect, but it's three times. But they nerfed it by making it 70% instead of a lower percentage, so you use them up quicker. However, while that is happening, she also has a defense debuff on the enemy team, essentially the entire game, right? And every couple seconds, she'll lower the defense stat by 40%, and I think it stacks a little bit. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, it stacks twice, so it's basically 80% defense reduction every 12 seconds, basically. The first 6 seconds, 40, and after that, it's just gonna be consistently 80%. And yeah, it's pretty good. And yeah, that's her passive. And then we just go back to her ult. Her ult is basically she becomes immune to status effects, meaning it can't really be interrupted if she's still alive. And then she'll restore HP, okay. And then she'll also increase attack. And then she'll also increase HP every couple seconds. So she basically is a HP demon, right? And also let's look at her first skill that she'll activate when the round starts, and that's Magnetic Grenade. And then the magnetic grenade deals a bit of damage and it paralyzes them. Obviously, it does more, but that's the skill. I'll go with the exclusive equipment and the revolution later. And then also for the reverse link was the skill that I think most people were curious about. And essentially, it's kind of like it does what Albelda does, or Princess Mommy Anak, where she'll like link herself with a unit, but instead of it being linked to a ally, it's linked to an enemy, and that enemy will get their a portion of the HP will get transmitted from our allies. So most of the time it might be Xia Xia. Let's say you're fighting against Iraq and a bunch of other units. Xia Xia with the lowest HP will link itself with Rack, and and some of the damage to get hit at Xia Xia would be damage to Rack instead. And then also it also heals it. The link also heals the unit with the smallest HP a little bit too. So that's the base skills, right? So if you look, when you look at that, you look, they're gonna have to do a lot to make her really, really strong. And they did. They did a lot to make her very strong, right? So the exclusive equipment was mostly based on the grenade because the grenade was pretty bare bones, right? It was just you paralyze them, and then that's it. But with the exclusive equipment, you recover 50 energy per each enemy hit. So let's say, and also this gets thrown at the area with the most enemies. So let's say they throw the grenade and it hits 5 enemies, you get 250 energy, which is very, very, very good. And then the reverse link now debuffs at magical resistance and physical resistance on top of the HP transfer, which is really strong, right? Ults now do 40%. This does 30. Obviously 10% less, but nevertheless very, very strong considering the fact that you're lowering defense throughout the whole thing. And then you have the also you also reduce HP by 5% for 10 seconds. And it also stacks 4 times, okay? So if you're able to hit the magnetic grenade several times throughout before 10 seconds, you can probably get it done. You can probably get a good 20%. That's very unlikely, but even if every percentages matter because you're already decreasing defense by 40% on the passive consistently and 80% consistently, and then on top of the grenade, you're doing stupid amount of defense reduction. And then also, Genius Hack in the fourth, making sure that the Genius Hacker effects happens at the start of battle, meaning that defense debuff, you don't have to wait 6 seconds. It happens straight away, meaning that it'll make it easier for you to kill the enemy, which is always good. Right? And then let's look at her revolution. So on her passive for the Genius Hacker, right, it neutralizes it removes buffs basically. It removes buffs for the enemy team. So like let's yes. And then also it also recovers 500 energy on her when she heals herself, right? So when she drop under 70%, she'll be invincible for a couple seconds, she'll heal herself back up, and she'll also gain energy, which is very good because then it'll make her activate her ult better. And her ult is the meat of the survivability, and that's how you clear the enemy field, right? And then if you look at the ult now gives invincibility for 2 seconds and also increases the allies' classic physical and magical resistance by 60%, which is very, very good, but it becomes less and less effective the higher you climb up the tower or the higher the deficit. But it's also very good for units or players who don't have higher magical and physical resistance in that kit. And that's a lot of people. I'm not gonna lie, not many people have physical and magical resistance to 100%. So this ult actually helps a lot, especially with lower players on the lower floor of the game, or beginner players, and then mid-range players, and even higher range players who were very unlucky with the tri essences. So don't sleep on this physical and magical resistance buff for 10. It also is for 10 seconds too. It lasts a while. So either way, now I've got this whole kit over, let's talk about how this unit kind of runs itself. So obviously, if you have a revolution, I'm talking about this as like a rainbow Xia Xia. So she'll come up on the field, she'll use this, so the whole field now defense decrease the second that the round starts, okay? And then the second that happens, she'll throw the magnetic grenade. So essentially, you'll do this, then this will happen. So she'll throw the grenade, and then she'll get energy off of that grenade, and hopefully the enemies will be paralyzed. And then on top of that, that will just make her ult happen really, really quickly. So her ult happens really early throughout the round. So she's basically like okay. The way that I view her, she's very much like a reimagined Evan, in the sense that like the whole point of Evan back in the day was to hope for having him rainbow was like to have him be invincible as quickly as possible to give the survivability of your team better. She's basically that. She makes her ult happen very, very quickly, and she also hopefully paralyzes the enemy team, meaning it'll be very hard for the enemy to do stuff for you at the beginning of the game, which is really where her value lies because Toa, I think, does overall more buffs for the team, but I think Xia Xia will do more damage to the enemy team. and increases survivability in the long run, even though she has invincibility for half the time. Because if you look at Toa's invincibility is, well, that's Hugo. Wow. Toa's invincibility is for example, 4 seconds. If you look at Evan, his invincibility is for 6 seconds, right? And you see, and then you look at what's her name, Xia Xia for 2, and you're like, what? But her real value is the physical and magical resistance buff, and also the fact that she'll be able to spam her ult a lot more because she gets energy off of her healing, off her passive, and then she also gets it from the grenade. Um, right? So and then I didn't even get to the reverse link. So like I said before, the round will start, defense destroyed. Okay, debuff on top of the debuff, defense debuff on top of it with this and survivability. The whole point of Xia Xia is making damage dealers do way more damage by debuffing the enemy. And let's not forget that she buffs the attack of your allies at the same time, right? So she'll debuff the enemy by paralyzing them and decreasing their defense to oblivion. And then she'll ult, giving every ally their attack buff, which is insane, right? And then that brings us to the reverse link. So normally, the way that I've seen her react is that she'll do those things, then she'll ult, and then she'll use a reverse link. So when this link came out, everybody was like, "Damn, maybe they'll be able to one-shot enemies once you link them to the unit with the lowest HP." That's not really the case. The link just makes it very easy for DPS to shred, right? Most of the time, the reverse link will be sent to a tank. So when it's sent to the tank, like Rack or Yama or whatever tank the enemy has, that will be linked to the support unit. But with the defense decrease to like 80, 90, 100 maybe, percent, on top of that, with the attack buff you get from the ults and the physical and magical resistance you get off of the reverse lane because of the exclusive equipment, like the tank doesn't really survive very long, right? So like CX whoa CX is one of those units where her impact of the team isn't foreignly seen or seen very well because of the fact that her main thing is defense decrease, right? And then also the fact that her reverse link doesn't kill the enemy, but it's just a way for you to DPS to just shred them, right? So that's how she really really works, right? And she is overall a very 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 strong unit because no matter what team you put her on, she will always gain value because of her invincibility, her physical and magical increase buff, and the fact that she just decreases defense the entire time. And that is her main gimmick that people aren't really like appreciating, right? And I can tell you that for a fact because I used her with Gustang, and my Gustang isn't Rainbow. Okay, so he doesn't just come in, puts his dick on the table, and just trashes the whole field because he's not Rainbow. What he does do, but so to counteract that, I decided to use him on my team, but I have all my supports around him, and I literally mean all my supports. I mean, Some Ihwa, I use Garam, I use I used to use Evan, but now I use Toa, and I use Xia Xia as a replacement to Evan, and she made and normally before by the way before Xia Xia, even with Toa, he would he would almost run out of time, especially if I fight someone like Hatsu or Hats, right? Or Ghost, like she will struggle to fight against them. And I mean Gustang. With Xia, with the reverse link, like she comes up and she just trashes those tanks. They aren't a problem, meaning that running out of time with Gustang is just never an issue. Like it takes half a time to destroy a stage with CXT with Gustang on the team because they just work so well together. And then that's what I mean by like her value is underappreciated. She also grants invincibility and res and all that stuff. She's such a good unit. Now, if in terms of sets, I just like Bari. Sorry, Bari is just so reliable. But if you really don't want to use Vari, Reflect is really good too because it just makes it so that she can always activate her stuff. It also, I think, increases swiftness. No, um, I forget. I don't really use Reflect that much, but yeah, I think it increases yeah, it increases swiftness, and then also increases HP, which is really good. And then she also recovers energy. So the second that someone stuns her, that'll stop from happening. She'll get her energy. She'll ult. You'll be in good business. You'll be in great business, right? So if you don't want to use Barry set because you trust on her survivability, Reflasia might be very good for her because you really want her to activate her ult and activate her skills as quickly as possible. So Reflasia might be a really good set for her as well. I mean, I guess you can use Elsa, but don't use Elsa for this character. Anyways, that's the review for Xia Xia. She's really, really strong. There's not really a team that she isn't really valued on. So honestly, she just works really well with every single team. She's just a very good unit. And now, for the problem child himself, Zahard, Adventure Zahard. And when I tell you right now, bro, he is. I don't know what they were thinking with this guy. I really don't, because I like the fact they include new rarity and they're reimagined different version of the characters that we know and love and whatever. But this Zahard sucks. Okay, and if it was a character that I was really hoping for that we get a really cool new like imagining of, it was Zahard because Zahard's a really cool character. He's just outdated. And one of the reasons why Data Zahard is outdated is because he used to be a tank damage dealer, right? He was like a good like jack of all trades character. He'll do decent damage. He's hard to kill, and then also he does a bunch of status effects like he knocks people down, he decreases defense, he stuns them. Like he's on paper very very good. It's just that he doesn't do enough damage, and if he doesn't get his hit affected, it doesn't work that well. Also, his needle drop wasn't really didn't really happen that much, right? So when they reimagining him, I thought they were gonna mess up with his kid a little bit, make him a little bit more interesting. But no, his skills are exactly the same, literally exactly the same. There's no difference written in any of these apart from the revolution. The data are hard have. Even the exclusive equipment is exactly the same. The only thing that's different in their skills is that the percentage for Adventures are hard is lower than the percentage it is for Datas are hard. So, which is crazy, especially on you think that the newer unit will have higher stats than the older unit, but the older unit has higher stats, that percentages, than the newer unit. Let's look at this ult. 400%, 40%, 662, right? And let's look at that guy. 300%, 30%, 552. Are we serious right now? Needle drop is the only one that's the same. Literally the only one that's the same. If you look at Black Hole, 40 600, right? 4600. Let's look at him. 4550. Okay, let's look at his ult. His passive, sorry. Let's look at his passive real quick. 2%, and then 80. Am I tripping? Yeah. 2%, 80. And I think for this guy, I'm not sure this one's different actually, I'm not sure. Well, I guess the love war is the same. But two of his passives are different. And well, the percentages are lower, which is crazy, right? I don't know why they did that. I'm not sure if it was because Adventures of Hard is a younger version of Data Zahard, so his stats are lower or whatever. But I think what my headcanon is the reason why they did that is because the revolution is different. And like I said before, this guy was like a jack of all trades. The thing is, he aged very poorly because he doesn't do enough damage. Like he literally does not do enough damage, right? So sometimes it might just be better to get another unit that does similar things, but that does more damage than a fucking fish, right? So the thing is, they lowered his stats, his percentages, so he does even less damage than the first Zahard. So the way that I think they were trying to reimagine this character is that they were trying to make it so that the old Zahard was actually more focused on damage too. Because if you look at his revolution for Data Zahard, it's Golden Needle will all result in a crit, and then this guy was like, and you also increase damage based on the amount of resistance you have for the Needle of War. Needle of War kind of sucks. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it's okay, but okay, it's a good passive, but this revolution is pretty mid, right? Whereas the result in critical is essentially useless, right? Why would you want to? Because yeah, that was essentially useless. That revolution kind of sucked. But for this guy, that instead of focusing on damage, they're focusing more on utility. So if you look at his revolution, for here, for example, Needle of War is enhanced, reducing remaining active cooldown of green elements by 8 seconds when transforming weapons. Meaning that whenever this Zahard changes weapon from 1, 2, and 3 on his passive, he transforms twice, by the way, because he has phase 1, and then phase 2 and phase 3. When it transforms from phase 1 to phase 2 and phase 2 to phase 3, every single green ally reduces the cooldown by 8 seconds, which is pretty strong, but it only happens twice. But I think they're really just really doubling down on this revolution and the other revolution being so strong that it validates the percentages of each of the things, which is like fine, I guess. I guess, you know. If you look at his revolution here, instead of giving it a 100% crit on the golden needle, they just make it so that he can evade it. He can evade the enemy better. And the reason why it's important is because whenever he counters attack or evades an enemy, he stuns the target, which is very, very good, right? A stun enemy is great. And like, so the thing they're trying to go more on utility on him so that like his gold needle is more consistent and that he also supports the allies by making that cooldown happen quicker, meaning that they can use their active skills quicker and the ult quicker, right? Which is honestly very strong, but it only happens twice. And his stats are lower, like his percentages are lower for the moves. But as a unit, on paper, he does a lot, right? He jolts, he destroys barriers, he reduces cooldown, he reduces defense, he increases evasiveness for himself, meaning he can stun, and he technically does a lot. He knocks down, he bleeds, he burns, like on paper he does a lot. But for some reason, like I don't know, he's very outdated. I think that this was a time in Tower of God where they didn't really know what they wanted to do with the character. But at least now the vision of this character now is sort of it being a damage dealing tank, which this is hard right now is just like half a tank because he doesn't really provoke, and instead of being just invincibility tank, he's an invincibility tank that there's also more utility based, right? He'll stun more consistently and he'll ult more consistently. Like I said before, I think it's better for him for you to summon with just essentially just regular summon tickets and the data tower. I'm not, and if you can remember him off that way, that's good. And if you already have it as a hard rainbow, I don't really think you really need XSR Adventures a hard rainbow. But if you're a new player, to have abundance of normal ticket summons, then I think summoning on that's a hard might be off of value, especially if you're trying to build a green team. But I think overall, you're not really missing much if you already have Data Zahard Rainbow or anything like that. Or even if you don't have a Rainbow, there are a lot, and you don't. There's lots of SSR units that are much more valuable than this Zahard specifically. For example, this guy is a great tank for yellow. Yellow doesn't really have a lot of tanks. Well, you can't get him anymore, so let's ignore him. But if you don't have bomb is very good. There's so many units are more valuable than him. Anna is a must-have in purple unit team. This character is better. I think, you know, this guy is absolutely broken. One of the best to ever do it. So like there's so many SSRs you could be using instead of Data Zahard, but he is a limited unit. But realistically, there's not really much incentive to summon for this guy, if I'm being honest with you. But he is very good. He's usable. Like he's like a 6 out of 10. Like this, he's just old, and they didn't do enough for him to make me validate this whole like SSR plus thing for him. But I do think this is a good way for newer players to get old SSR units without getting new SSR plus units, if that makes any sense, right? And he's clearly better than old Zahard based off his revolution, but I don't think he's good enough to validate spending your suspendium for him or spending some regular summon tickets on him. But he's not bad. He's not bad. He's okay. But anyways, that's the video. I don't want to keep talking. Oh yeah, oh my bad. I almost forgot. Sets for him. Um, for him specifically, I use Alopecia because Alopecia is based on dodge and evasiveness to make his needle drop more consistent. So you'll have the invasiveness increase. Then I'll also use evasiveness for his revolution, and then yeah, and then do that with the Alopecia. Will increase. He'll just like slowly do more damage as time progresses, but yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you can also use Bari if you don't have a rainbow too. That's not a bad idea as well either to make him more of a tank because until he gets his revolution, he's just a tank, and then with the revolution, he becomes a tank slash support as kind of not really, and that's just that's like a rainbow setup. A non-rainbow setup, use Bari. Anyways, that's the video. I'll see you guys in a bit, and bye.